Hi, I'm Meg. I'm the editor at Seamwork, and I am here to do a little sewing experiment. I want to answer the question, what happens when you don't pre-wash your fabric before you sew a piece of clothing? If you don't pre-wash your fabric, is your t-shirt going to shrink in the wash and then you won't even be able to wear it? Or does it really make a difference? Stay tuned as I do this little experiment with a couple garments and a couple different kinds of fabric, and I will let you know what I find out. So first I want to explain how I'm going to conduct this experiment. I am going to use two different kinds of fabric. One is woven, one is knit, and I'm going to sew two different seamwork patterns, the Orlando t-shirt and the bow top. I'm going to sew one of each before I wash the fabric or treat it in any way, and I'm going to sew another one after I have washed the fabric. And at the end, we're going to compare the two garments and see how much shrinkage there was, if it affected the overall shape, or if I'd still be able to wear these garments even though I didn't wash my fabric before I sewed them. So let's meet the fabrics I'm going to use for this experiment. The first one is a jersey knit. It's the one I'm going to use, or that I did use for the Orlando top. And I got it from Blackbird Fabrics, and according to the tag, it is 57.5% cotton, 37.5% modal, and 5% spandex. And so this is a pretty typical t-shirt weight knit. It's got the modal, so it's got some extra drape, but I thought it would be a good example of what would happen if you did not pre-wash knit before you sewed up a t-shirt. So I've got my yardage here that I will wash for my other sample, and then I have a little swatch here so that we can measure the difference as well. For the next fabric, it's a woven fabric that I'm going to be using to sew the bow top, which I have not made yet. I also got this at Blackbird Fabrics, and it's a viscose linen noir, and it's in the colorway of latte. And according to the fabric tag, it's 70% viscose and 30% linen. I thought this would be a good example because anything with any kind of a rayon in it can be kind of a disaster in the washing machine depending on the percentage. And linen is also can be prone to shrinkage. So I thought that this would be a good fabric to experiment with. The instructions say to machine wash warm and tumble dry low or hang to dry. I picked this one because you could machine wash it. Sometimes with rayon, I know that they don't want you to put it in the washing machine, but I wanted to get one where you could so that we could see kind of what the effect of that would be. So those are the two fabrics that I'm going to be using for this little experiment. I am going to sew up all of my samples, and I will meet you back here to show you what shrank and what didn't and by how much, and if this even really matters. Welcome to my laundry room. So I thought I would give you a couple tips while I do my laundry. First of all, I'm going to throw the bow top in that I already sewed. Again, this fabric was unwashed, so it's going in to be washed for the first time, already sewn. Then I have my yardage here, and I have serged the ends of it. If you're not serging or finishing the ends of your fabric before you pre-wash it, you're going to end up with a tangled mess. So I have my yardage with the edges serged. I'm going to wash that. And as a little bonus for you, I'm going to wash a little scrap without serging, and then one end is actually pinked using pinking shears. So as a little bonus, we can compare the different finishing methods and see what works best. And then I also have my swatches, which I'm going to put in a little lingerie bag so that I don't lose them. And I'm just going to pop it in here and wash the fabric as directed on the fabric tag. I'm going to do the same with the Orlando knit fabric. And then I will meet you back in the sewing room to see how it all went. All right, I am back. I've finished sewing everything. I've finished washing everything. And now it's time to see if the experiment worked. And the experiment definitely worked. So what this means is that you really should pre-wash your fabric. Let's take a look at why. So here is the bow top that I sewed with pre-washed fabric. So I washed this fabric according to the care instructions. I cut out the size 8 and I sewed it. Pressed it, it's all ready to go on the model here. This is the bow top that I sewed before I pre-washed the fabric, and I want to show you how dramatically it shrank. This will be the #1 reason why you want to pre-wash your fabric, is it can shrink, and it can shrink a lot. So let's take a look at what this one looks like. And it's the bow crop top. As you can see, it shrank significantly in length, and it is now officially a crop top. I actually really kind of like it, and I'm still going to wear it, but if this isn't what you intended to make, it might be what you end up with if you don't pre-wash your fabric. You can also see here that the neckband kind of tore apart a little bit. This doesn't usually happen after I wash my project when I sew it, But I think the reason that this happened is that the binding actually kind of shrank and tugged, and it pulled apart at the seams a little bit. So that was an unexpected surprise, and another cautionary tale for pre-washing your fabric, because you never know what those binding or hem bands might do when they shrink when they've already been sewn into the garment. Okay, so the bow top shrank pretty dramatically, and it was made out of a woven fabric. But what happens with knit fabrics? Are they a little bit more forgiving? Let's find out. So this is the Orlando top sewn in a size 10, and this is fabric that I pre-washed. So I pre-washed it according to the care instructions, sewed it up, washed it one more time, and here it is. Now we're going to take a look at the Orlando top that I sewed without pre-washing the fabric. So I just got the fabric, cut right into it, sewed it up, and then I washed it. I just want to point out right away that there is already some distortion at the neckline, I think because the neckband shrunk and it kind of created some puckering here along the neckline. So I have a feeling there was some shrinking, but let's see what it looks like when you're wearing it. And surprise, surprise, this shirt also shrank. It isn't as noticeable as it is on the woven fabric because knits really are forgiving, they'll stretch. You can see that the distortion at the neckline stretches out and lays flat against your neck when you put the shirt on. But when the shirt's not on, it's a little bit more obvious. Pay attention to how much it shrank in length because that's kind of what you want to pay the most attention to with garments, especially woven garments. If you ever wash a pair of jeans, you'll notice they may shrink in length more than in width. So I have a few more examples of how different fabrics can shrink because again, it's a gamble if you don't pre-wash your fabric. You don't know how much it's going to shrink. So I have cut out some 5x5 samples, I washed them, and now I'm going to measure them and see how much they shrank. This is a denim sample. It actually did okay. It only shrank about 1/8 of an inch, which isn't too bad. That's not the case for every denim. So again, it's a gamble. This is a lightweight cotton, and this one shrank pretty significantly. It shrank 1/2 an inch, so it is now 4.5 inches wide instead of 5. Same with the linen that I sewed the sample for bow. It actually shrank about 3/4 of an inch. So big shrinkage there. The knit, like I said, a little bit more forgiving, but measuring the swatch, you can see that it definitely shrank at least 1/4 of an inch. So there you have it. Shrinking happens, and you can prevent it by pre-washing your fabric according to the manufacturer's instructions. I have one more bonus for you, a little experiment within an experiment. This is the swatch of fabric that I pre-washed, and I wanted to show you what happens when you finish the edges. So if I had serged the edges, they'd be totally neat and contained within the serging. But if you don't have a serger, what can you do? Well, something you can try to do is get a pair of pinking shears and pink the edge. So I did that with this edge here, and as you can see, it's pretty nice, it's pretty neat, there's not that much fraying. This is the side where I didn't do anything. Absolutely no finishing of that seam, and look at how messy it gets. This can turn into a huge tangled mess in your washing machine if you don't finish your fabric before you pre-wash it. So, word of caution, get a pair of pinking shears, do a quick zigzag stitch, or serge the edges of your fabric before you toss it in the wash to avoid this thready mess. And that concludes my experiment. I had a lot of fun doing the Seamwork lab with you, so if you have a request for any other experiments you'd like to do, leave a comment below, tell us what you want to know, and we will do the experimenting so that you don't have to. And don't worry, I'm still gonna wear this bow crop top. In fact, I'm gonna wear all these samples because they didn't shrink too much that I won't be able to wear them. That being said, I recommend you always, always, always pre-wash your fabrics. Happy sewing! I guess I'll continue talking about it. I won't.